What's up, everybody on YouTube? Thank you for tuning in. You guys are absolutely awesome. As of this day, I really don't promote this YouTube channel that much, but I'm just going to be logging all of this stuff in here. So for people who probably will watch this stuff later on, really, really awesome. So going to be starting off on my Facebook Live. I'm going to introduce my Facebook Live to the show, and then I'm going to roll on over to start the podcast recording. And we're ready to rock and roll. But dude, today is going to be really exciting. The operating procedure to destroying the matrix or breaking the matrix, if you will. So now a lot of people, when they think of a standard operating procedure, they probably get really bored. That's completely normal in my personal opinion, because that is so very true. But we develop systems in everything we do. So let me go over here and introduce the Facebook. All right, so let's get it rolling. Hello, everybody on Facebook. Today is going to be really exciting, and usually it's not exciting when you're talking about the standard operating procedure of anything. But with this, I think you'll really enjoy it. So we have systems that we've developed in everything that we do. And so why can't we develop a system to accurately break the matrix? And that's what we want to do today. So I'm really, really happy that you guys are tuning in. Now, if you're catching a little bit of this early on, just remember that there is obviously the podcast will be uploaded in its entirety to any podcasting platform that you prefer. So we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to go over, shoot over to the QuickTime player I've got here and get the podcast officially rolling. But just want to say first and foremost that you guys are tuning in on Facebook. Really appreciate it. And at any time you can drop Facebook, because I don't really spend that much time watching a bunch of stuff on Facebook. Just like to be able to download something off a podcast a little bit easier. And I know some of you guys like that too. So just know that at this point, you will be able to access that podcast maybe in about an hour. So let's get this recording started and we're ready to rock and roll. There is a definitive way that you can break the matrix in any category. This episode is going to detail simple steps to take when attempting to break the matrix. It's important to have an operating procedure when seeking out the truth and inevitably breaking the matrix no matter what the topic is. The difference here is matrix breakers are committed to the truth, no matter how unbelievable or unfavorable. When dealing solely in truth, we can have an authentic sense of reality so that we can make the world a better place. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a rating, review, and feel free to share this with your family and friends. Now, let's get started. The first key point is this. When the time comes for you to break the matrix, you'll want to first clearly identify what the matrix is. This can mean a number of different things. Imagine if you're looking into your phone or driving your car. You know what it is, but how does it work? What is the purpose of some components of your phone or car? At first glance, you only see the device and experience its effects. You don't give much thought as to how it operates. Well, when dealing with the matrix, you are going to want to know how things work. This is the kind of approach we should use when reading the news, dealing with a personal issue, handling other people's emotions, or getting a medical diagnosis, etc. Now, the idea here is that obviously, yeah, you do drive your car, you do use your phone, but how does it work? I'm not asking you to be an engineer, although some people who are engineers, if you're listening to this podcast, you are obviously going to say, well, of course, I want to know how things work. I just love to do that. While other people are like, well, I don't really care how it works. I just want to know how to use it. And so there is a difference there. Now, when becoming a matrix breaker, you can look at a topic and look at its surface level understanding. And you can get that surface level understanding very, very quickly usually. But what's really most important is to do what I would call a deep dive into this information to discover what it's really about. So this is the idea here. It's usually used for engineers. Why did I call it a standard operating procedure? Because, yeah, those are one of the most boring things you could ever read. If you've ever tried to learn how something works, it is insane. There's a lot of things that go into something. But what I'm asking you to do is to take the time to really learn about specific topics that are what we would consider be breaking the matrix, right? My second point is this: to effectively identify the matrix of anything, you must seek out the truth. Go behind the curtain, if you will. Discover why the matrix is operating the way it does. We will continue to do this on this podcast in a number of different ways, whether it's talking about how to handle relationship issues, understanding the news, comprehending business strategies, etc. To do this, you'll want to seek quality information and go through a complete analysis on that particular topic. Listen to competing sides of an issue. This way, you develop a full understanding of what's really going on. Even though this sounds difficult to do in every topic of discussion, it is necessary to become an expert in a field or break the matrix completely. Is that something you will do in every matrix in your life? No. But by handling it that way with a few topics, it will open more understanding into other topics as well. The good news is once you do a deep dive with reliable intelligence, you won't have to do it again. So, again, where am I getting at here? The idea here is that you're trying to find out how something works, right? You're trying to find out, well, why is the news saying this? Or why is my significant other acting in this way? How is she operating, or how is he operating? What is their operating procedure? What is their psychology like, right? And then you have to go and you can broaden this, okay, to have a complete understanding as to like why they would put fluoride in the water. Like, what is that? And why would they do something like that? Now, you can go to the surface level answers of that. Let's say, for example, which is like, oh, well, for lower income neighborhoods, we wanted to make sure that they had clean teeth, right? That they don't have, they have less dental issues, let's say, for example. But then when you do a deep dive, you start to really understand what fluoride does to the brain, how it lowers our IQ. There's more studies even coming out right now that it's affecting breast milk. It's affecting birth defects. I mean, there's a lot of issues. And so anyways, the point is that when you do a deep dive on something, you have this complete understanding. Now, again, you don't have to do this with every topic. You don't have to know everything about everything. This is something I don't want people to feel lost in, okay? But let's just put it this way. If you were to understand the full capacity as to maybe how the medical system operates, maybe that's something that really interests you. Like, you're really curious as to why people are getting sicker, right? And why healthcare costs are raising, but healthcare quality is getting lower. How come our people are dying earlier, right? You would wonder about this stuff, right? Well, go ahead and do a deep dive on that. And what will happen is not only will you discover the history of what we call allopathic medicine and these kinds of things and eugenics and stuff like that, but then you start to get into such a broad range of things. And what that does for you is it opens up doors in your mind to really question other things in your life, right? So like, for example, with the medical establishment and let's say big pharma, well, let's just say, for example, you go medical establishment first, right? Then you understand big pharma. Bayer company was once a German Nazi company. I mean, you start to understand different things, right? And then let's say, okay, you've got big pharma, and then you realize, holy shit, big pharma is like, pharmaceutical companies. Those are the number one advertiser on multimedia. So ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox News, all of those media channels, their number one advertiser are pills. Think about that, pharmaceutical drugs. So then you're like, oh my gosh, these are fake drugs. They don't do anything for you, but like suppress symptoms, let's say, for example. They manage disease because that's what the allopathic medicine of modern day medicine is trying to do, and manages disease. Then you're going into, holy shit, So then if that's the media being funded by, big pharma, then the media is kind of in on it. Maybe they don't have a full understanding of it, but the people who own the media, they're able to sort of plug with big pharma. You've got a lot of pills that are not necessarily good for you. I would say in many cases, you're getting a lot of people having earlier deaths, having more health issues due to the pharmaceutical industry, right? So anyways, the point is that what happened there? Well, you started with, oh, I wanted to just, see the matrix of the medical establishment and have a full understanding of why it is the way it is, right? And then where did you end up? Holy fucking shit. The media is literally funded by big pharma. Like, so you see what I mean here? You end up going down one rabbit hole and you end up popping out on the other side of the land, if you will. I'm just using a physical analogy. But that's what happens when you start doing a deep dive, when you start really learning from quality intelligence, right? Okay, so here's my third point. Now that you've done a deep dive into a specific topic, you'll want to seek out other matrix breakers or truth seekers who you believe in to verify what you've come to establish on your own. A lot of the problem we are having is people in the matrix live in an echo chamber of similar opinions. This is how the matrix is able to convince a person to believe in something that is only benefiting them in the long run, them being the matrix, of course. An example of this would be socialism. So when you're on the search for the truth, be sure to turn to people who are truly matrix breakers. I'd imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you know a few other people who are on team humanity versus the matrix. I just simplified that, right? Who is a matrix breaker? So now that you've done a deep dive and you've understood, if we go back to the example of the medical establishment and you go into big pharma and the media, and then what's the media talking about? Well, then why the media talk about racism so much? Why does the media talk about all this other stuff so much? Okay, well then boom, you realize divide and conquer strategies, the British Empire, the Great Game, India, historical examples of the same thing being used multiple times by an opposing force that comes into your country, comes into your land, learns how to conquer you by dividing your tribes amongst each other. Like I just gave you a whole fucking download right there, right? So now you've got to go and seek out other matrix breakers, right? Okay, well, I really like the Joe Rogan podcast or something. Oh, okay. You really like this or this or this, right? Well, people who obviously pump out a lot of content, let's say, for example, they're going to be writing a lot. They're going to be talking a lot, right? So they're going to be covering a multitude of topics. What I tell people is to seek out an expert in this field. So we have a trade war with China right now. And, I'm trying to have a complete understanding of it. Not only that, then you've got the Hong Kong protests that have been happening. Now, this is, during the middle of August. So if you're listening to this later, during this time, Hong Kong was still Hong Kong. Okay. It belonged to the Hong Kong people, not the Chinese communists, right? So I don't know where you are in the future, right? But the Chinese might just take over Hong Kong. So anyways, there is a full understanding of the situation that needs to be learned, right? Now, you may not be interested in the trade war. You may not be interested in China and its effects on America and what's really going on in the world in that sector, if you will. But I was, right? And so whenever I'm trying to break that matrix, what do I got to do? Well, I've got to go and seek out people who are experts on China, people who understand trade, people who understand the Hong Kong people, what they want, people who maybe even Americans, if you will, who have lived in China, who've experienced the Chinese, right? This is just an example of what I did, literally today, to have a full understanding. So I'm seeking out these experts who know what they're talking about, right? Too often, we might actually like somebody too much and we listen to everything they say about everything. That is something that we have to watch out for, guys. You want to be a very versatile person and actually come to full understandings by listening to experts. Seek out experts. Don't just take an opinion of your favorite rapper because he doesn't like so-and-so or he says something about, whatever. that doesn't mean just because you like him, he's an expert rapper. Does that make any sense? So you're going to listen to him when he talks about rapping in the music game, right? But then when that guy goes and treads into politics, maybe you shouldn't take his advice because maybe he's not an expert on that. Maybe he doesn't know what's going on, he or she, right? So I'm just giving you an example. This is the echo chamber that we're stuck in. So we tend to like certain people and then we tend to listen to them and we just want to learn what they're talking about. I gave an example earlier in this point with socialism, right? I mean, everyone fucking knows socialism is horrible. It leads right to communism. It's state control of our goods and manufacturing and our economy. And, the government doesn't do anything right. And we've had that. It's called a monarchy. It's called a kingdom. You remember that shit? You know how we tore away from that? You remember how we had an American Revolution and we inspired the world to do that? You know how we had a project that we broke the matrix with the American Revolution? Nothing was ever done like that. Even in Rome and the Roman Empire had a democracy where we have a republic. We've established something that's brand new on this planet, and it's only just over 200 years old. So again, that's matrix breaking. Okay, why would socialism and communism, like, that's broken? That's so backwards. You don't even have you have no spiritual lifestyle in a communist country. Look at China. I mean, it's unbelievable. So again, we'll go into a deep dive on communism, socialism, but it's just honestly a big joke. It's just the biggest joke ever. It's like the richest bankers are offshore, tax exempt, right? And they're so wealthy, they don't want a middle class to compete with them, right? They don't want small businesses coming up, becoming corporations, and therefore competing for business, right? No. These bankers, they don't want that, right? These are major cartels, if you will. Some of these people are like Apple and even Amazon to some extent. Some of these, obviously billion-dollar companies, they are offshore. They don't get taxed, okay? Apple's in fucking China, for example, and they don't get taxed. They're tax exempt in China because they're communist run. So again, socialism in America, let's say, for example, this is just a perfect example of the matrix. Like, if you honestly believe that that's the best government possible and we need to get rid of capitalism, then you don't even know anything. You are literally living in the matrix. I honestly hate to say that because I used to be kind of a socialist. I used to think that, like, oh my gosh, everything's, we need to just change everything and the government and everything. No, dude, you're young. You don't know how the government works. Like, you don't even study history. You have no clue what you're talking about. And again, this goes to another point I'm going to make. A lot of people are trying to become jacks of all trades. They're trying to sort of, if you have an opinion about something, and I've shared this on this podcast, have an opinion about it, but remember, be humble enough to say, well, I don't really know a lot about that, right? So for example, I was over the weekend, I was at a friend's party, and somebody came up to me and started talking about his car, right? And he's talking about the air filters and the whole, his tires and this cleaning equipment he uses and all this stuff he did to the car. And I mean, it was just so fucking much information. I had no clue what that guy was talking about. I mean, this guy was speaking another language. Now, some of you car guys are probably laughing listening to this, but to me, I mean, I'm talking about, like, he was into it. Okay. And so I told the guy, I said, hey, listen, dude, you're literally speaking Italian to me. Like, I don't know what you're saying when you talked about this or talked about that. And so we need more people that are humble enough to be like, hey, man, I don't really know a lot about that. I might have an opinion, but I just don't know a lot about that. I haven't really researched enough about that, blah, blah, blah. So anywho, keep that in mind as we move on. So the fourth point here is, if there is a specific topic you feel very passionate about, like your business or career, then I implore you to obviously have your own opinion about that topic. This is for people who would consider themselves experts in that field. Those are the type of people I'd actually love to have on this podcast. So if you feel like you have a grasp on a topic that breaks the matrix, I invite you to reach out to me and let me have you on as a guest. Now, let me just tell you a little secret. If you want to become an expert in something, this is what's sad. I'm not saying this is something you should aspire to do, in a sense, okay? That this is the end of the road, okay? Don't get me wrong here. But if you want to become an expert in something, you just have to read 5 books about that topic. So if it's about dieting, if you read 5 books about dieting, you would be considered in the top 10% of the population with knowledge on dieting. Do you understand how fucking insane that is? I mean, that's sad to say because that's our population now, right? Our population is so diluted with information that they're not even informed on what's most important, right? So I'm not saying you should read a diet book, but the point is that if you wanted to understand, let's say, history or politics, or if you had aspirations to understand cars, unlike me, well, then you would read 5 books on cars, on how cars work, or what are the best cars, or the history of cars. You see what I'm saying? So you want to, if you read 5 books on a topic, you're already an expert. So, anyways, the point I'm saying here is if you feel passionate about something, if you feel like you know quite a bit about something and it breaks the matrix, I'm telling you the opposite. I'm not saying to feel like, oh, you can't share that stuff. No, no. In that specific case, you should want to share that all of the time. And that's why on this podcast, I have an interview list, and I'm going to be interviewing other people who are experts in different things that I might touch on. I might have some understanding of them, but I don't have a full understanding, right? So how do you leverage information? People, friendships, relationships. That's how you leverage information, right? So here's my 5th point. The difference here is that instead of having to hold up a house of cards, if you will, matrix breakers are able to deliver quality information without feeling hesitant or uncertain about it. Truth is truth, and it can stand alone. Every day, people can easily embrace the truth and feel righteous about it. The point here is that once you have the truth, it's undisputed. That's what's important. You can't unlearn what you learn when it comes to breaking the matrix. The idea of having your truth is a dangerous one and has been used in horrible ways throughout history. There is only the truth. That's what matrix breakers seek. Now, a lot of people, the yogi bears out there, I call them yogi bears to be nice, but the people who really are very spiritual, you're going to have a misunderstanding when I said that your truth is dangerous. What I mean by that is you can have a perspective on life. You can have, well, based on my life experience, blank. That's how most people should talk to anyone, honestly. Before you have an opinion, you should say, you should say, according to my life experience, this is what I think. Because then people are like, oh, well, your life experience in this area is a lot less than mine. So therefore, your opinion is a little less valuable. Now, that doesn't mean you're less valuable. It just means that your knowledge on this topic is less valuable because you're not concrete with what you know. That's why I'm telling you, you want to know how to break the matrix. You want to know anything about anything, right? You need to do a deep dive. You need to be patient and learn something and read a book. Read a book. Don't listen to it. Read it. So little things like that. So when people talk about, your truth, well, it is dangerous because then it's like, oh, if I believe that the sky is green, then I can go my whole life and that's my truth. That is fucking dangerous. And I understand that people think that that's, crazy. But the point is that that's what's going on right now, is that even though there are facts about certain topics, people ignore them because they want to respond emotionally, right? We have a lot of people not responding logically. So in these emotional responses, they're validating their beliefs, right? Just to curtail what their life experience has been. You have to be humble enough throughout life to know that your whole idea about something can radically change. And it can radically change in 1 minute. It doesn't take that long to completely change the way you think about something. It really doesn't. And that's what I'm saying with Matrix Breakers. You all out there, once you discover the truth, it stands by itself. It's undisputed. It's the champion of the world. It's like you don't have to really think much about it, right? And that's what I want for all of you. Stand on truth. And then what happens is if you have a stand on truth, like that's a foundation, if you will, you can build on that truth. You understand what I mean? You can build on something, have a belief in something, and it's well researched and you've had a full understanding of it. Wow. I mean, you just upgraded in life. I am telling you right now, So I'm teaching and telling at the same time. I am telling you right now that by having full understandings about something or many things, it will literally change the quality of your life. I mean, honestly. So let's move on to the sixth point. So once you feel you have a grasp on something that truly breaks the matrix, then share it with others. That's what I've done, right? Do this over your social media, YouTube, in person, out with friends, etc. Like, how often are we having badass conversations with our friends? Like, we need to start implementing that. Yeah, you're out drinking. Yeah, you're out partying. Or yeah, you're having dinner with friends or you're doing something. Why don't we get real with people? Why don't we really discover what people are all about? Why don't you share something that's totally matrix breaking, right? Uh, that's what we got to do more and more often. And you all know that if you've ever talked to me on the phone, if you've ever hung out with me, you know that I can get fired up about something and I can share with you something, knowledge on a specific topic that will blow your mind. And I'm not priding myself necessarily in that. I'm just saying that, I took that time, I took that time. I took the time to learn, I read every day, like I study all the time and I have life experience. I have a lot of life experience. I'm not an expert and I'm not perfect, but I'm just saying that I wish and want for you to want or to have that as well, Now, in conclusion, it is our duty, as we know from Principles, Leadership, Friendship, Legacy, and Character. If you haven't listened to those, you should definitely check those out. To break the matrix by helping others. Okay. That's what we know we have to do. We must aspire to share with the people around us in our circle of influence the truth on the topics that break the matrix. So remember, you have these people around you that you can influence, and you should seek to influence them in a positive way, right? Prepare your family and friends for the matrix. Don't sit idly watching the matrix destroy the people you love. Make the operating procedures of a matrix breaker a part of your life. Now, if you have any specific questions, you can always reach me directly at matrixbreakers@gmail.com. If you have any additional questions, research, or information about the podcast you'd like to send to me, you can also reach me at that email. Now, in all of our conclusions here, I'm very, very excited and happy that you guys tuned in. Share this with friends and family. I think it's very important. And I hope that going forward, you have a step-by-step process on how to break the matrix, how to have complete understandings with topics, and to maybe even be more humble when addressing something you don't understand. Have a listening ear when it comes to certain topics you may not have that full comprehension of. So I hope I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace. Okay, Facebook. So I'm closing out right now. Thank you for tuning in. You guys have been awesome. Share this with everybody and comment below. Let me know what you think about today. And again, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. So it means a lot to me. All right. Peace. All right, YouTube, you as well. You guys are wrapping up about 30 minutes here. That is unbelievable. So we've got it. You guys have a great rest of your day as well. Peace.